Everybody, and welcome to this week. And what a week it has been! It is so great to be back here once again on a Sunday as we begin this journey of our chatting. I guess we can call it that, as of our chatting, of our live stream, of our whatever we want to call it. I know a few of you are already in the house. Great to see you. Also, want to say a quick shout out to those of you watching this after the fact. So, those of you watching the replay, thank you very much for doing that, because I do get a lot of replay watch time, and I am just fantastically happy about that. All right, so before we get to any of our news stories today, let's hit up the chat. Let's see who we got in the chat, and we'll say a few hellos. First of all, Save Our Planet is in the chat. He says, I wanted to say hi now because no matter how hard I try to catch you live, I end up missing it. Unfortunately, but always watch afterwards. Thanks again for all the excellent financial info. Cheers. Gotta love that. As I said, I love all you people who watch this on the replay as well. And one more thing, question only. If you have time on your live, investing in Canadian national resources for 23, lithium, copper, etc., where to start research? Canadian, let's see, example, tech or more risk like Capstone. Thanks. All right. Well, we'll definitely touch on the Canadian resources today. Let me just say hi to everybody here before we circle back to that for you. Jordan's here. Hi there, Candace. Hope all was well this week. Hi, all of my chat family. Great to see you here, all here today. We got Scott from Create, Save, Invest. Hello, everybody. Hello, Scott. And we got Paul Santori here. Hello, Paul. And he's saying hello to Scott and everyone. And we got Jordan, of course, saying hello once again. And we have Jill in the house saying hi. And those of you who haven't caught Jill's second video, that dropped yesterday. So it's over there on the channel. So if you haven't seen it yet, go over, catch it, say a couple kind words to her in the comments, of course, and we'll go from there. So the question about Canadian natural resources. This is one of these things. I'm bullish on the whole sector, but which ones should we be looking at? That's a really good question. In fact, I think that's probably going to be a video, to be honest with you, Save Our Planet. So I think right now, CNQ is definitely one company I'm very bullish on. Now, they're technically more oil than natural resources. So it's kind of one of those interesting things. I do like gold, but I've been going with XGD, which is like a gold ETF, only because I find it has a lot more stability compared to any one of the individual gold companies. And there's a whole bunch of different ones. Copper, I've always kind of been fond of Mara, M-A-R-A. So that's one to certainly look at. But what I'll do is let me sit on this one, Save Our Planet. Maybe what I'll do is I'll see if I can get out a video before the end of February on this one here for you, and I'll do a bunch of research and save you from doing a whole bunch of research, of course. And all right, let's jump back down. We got Jordan back here saying, Joe Bond, can you post your link for us? And we got Scott. Thanks for the watches, Candace. Is your keyboard broken yet? No, I've got two keyboards, so it's kind of interesting. Well, technically, I have three keyboards, and this is kind of one of these interesting things in Mac world. So I have my normal Mac keyboard for my studio, but if I need to type something on the laptop, I can still, as long as I put the mouse over on the laptop and type on my Mac keyboard, it types on the other one as well on the laptop. So it's very versatile that way. It's one of the things I love about having a Apple environment. So that's going to be kind of interesting. I can actually post the link to Jill's video. Yeah, just give me 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. I have to grab it here. Let's see. Whoa. Let's not click on that. I want to click on this here. I'll get a shareable link, and I will drop it here in the chat. So, for those of you who want to check that out afterwards, that is the link to Jill's video. All right. Or you could just go to the channel as well. When do you think they will announce a recession? Not soon. And I'll tell you why. One of the things is that we're still getting positive GDP. And for a technical recession to happen, you need to have 2 quarters of negative GDP. That hasn't been happening. And part of the reason for that is the really strong job market. So there's so much money still floating around because almost everybody is working. That is going to make it very hard to call a recession. Some people are even starting to lean towards that there may not even be a recession. We may get like really, really close. I still think we're going to have a mild recession, but I'm willing to entertain the idea of a no recession at the same time. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, obviously, eventually we have to have a recession at some point because it is part of the natural economic cycle. So that's a really, really good question. So we're going to have to see how that turns out. Something to definitely keep our eyes on. Thank you very much. And Scott says a soft landing. Yeah, which is really interesting. Nobody thought, like both the Fed in the US and the Bank of Canada, they've been looking for that soft landing. And as, of course, they keep on piling on those interest rates, it got to a point that it almost looked completely unlikely that we were going to get a soft landing. We were looking at a hard landing. But now it's starting to look again like we may get that soft landing after all. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I mean, I'm ready for the bull market. I think a lot of people are probably ready for the bull market. And it almost felt like the bull market was starting up in January. But now that we've hit February, I think we're coming back down to earth a little bit because February has been a little bit more interesting, at least in the stock market. We've had some greens, we've had some red. There's still a lot of fear that's sort of sitting around for, basically for where the bottom is, whether or not we're going to, if you take a look at the Fed, every time Jay Powell speaks at this point, it can cause people to go crazy in one direction or the other. And we're going to talk a little bit about that when we start to get into the news. Do you think the bottom is in for Bitcoin? Here's the funny thing. If you had asked me this a month ago, I would be absolutely not. But I am seeing a lot of some positive news about Bitcoin. The price action of Bitcoin has been really, really good. And we're going to talk a little bit about crypto today too. So we're going to get to that. But do I think the bottom is in for Bitcoin? It could be. It could be. Bitcoin has seemed to, like, the volatility in Bitcoin has come way down. So I don't think even a month ago, I was thinking that there was the possibility that we could wick down to maybe 10K, but I'm beginning to think that we're not going to see that. I think that we're still going to see some ups and downs, of course. But I don't even know if we'll go under 20K unless we have some kind of a major event to push us under 20K. So Bitcoin is looking a little bit more stable right now. So anyway, all right. We got some stories. We always have stories from the title of the, I now give these things titles. We know what the first story is, and it's all about ChatGPT and something called Apprentice Bard. So let's start with the ChatGPT part. So one of the interesting things, any of you guys who use ChatGPT, sometimes you go over there in the daytime and it's like, oh, it's too busy. You can't have any answers today. And sometimes it creates a stupid poem or something, or a limerick about why ChatGPT is busy. Well, they're looking at an interesting concept. So if you don't want to have ChatGPT busy, they're coming out with something called ChatGPT Plus. So what this is it's basically a monetized version of ChatGPT. So it's going to be $20 a month. They're rolling it out in the States first. So it's not available yet in Canada. What it will do is it will give you preferential treatment so that you will never get that, ChatGPT is too busy to help you screen. And you'll also apparently get, the algorithm will work a little bit faster for you as well. So you'll get more cycles, I guess that's what you would call it, processor cycles. So that's kind of interesting. Now, another big issue with ChatGPT, of course, is now people are starting to, they're starting to use ChatGPT to make their work. So especially students are getting it to write essays and exams. And Teachers have been up in arms about it, saying, oh my God, this is the worst thing that could happen. Well, OpenAI, and they're the ones who make ChatGPT, in case you were living under a rock and didn't know. But OpenAI has now come out with a new tool. They're calling it the AI text classifier. And what it can do is, if you run some text through it, it can tell you what percentage of that text has likely been created by AI. So teachers will have this, that if they suspect their student is using ChatGPT to write their essays, they could copy and paste those essays and dump it into this new AI text classifier, and it will let them know if that student is cheating. So if you are a student and you're thinking about cheating, what you probably want to do is have ChatGPT write an outline, but then take that outline and maybe write that for yourself from that point. That way there you can get them to sort of guide you, but make sure the words are your own so that you're not being hit by these by this AI text classifier. I'm not encouraging cheating. I'm just saying use it as a resource, but do the actual work yourself. Anyway, that's just the way I look at it. Miriam just made it in. Holy crackers, I actually made it to the live. Hello, everyone. Hello, Marion. It is great to see you. Marion's been a channel member, and she's also been around for a while. Oh, by the way, if you guys not yet hit that like button, just slam on it. Turn the thing blue, and that will send this out so anybody who's out and around just messing on the internet will know that we're up and live. So that will give them a little bit of a heads up. So ChatGPT, since we're still on that, a lot of people are saying it's a Google killer. It's so much easier to get answers from ChatGPT than Google, and it is. It absolutely is, because ChatGPT will communicate with you a lot more than Google will. Google just pulls things up. But now over at Google, of course, Google's a little bit worried about ChatGPT, so they have actually started rushing to get their AI chatbot up and running. And we have a tentative name for it. It's called Apprentice Bard. So our Apprentice Bard, it's going to be based on their Lambda system, which is that AI that recently was in the news because that one guy who got fired from Google was trying to say that it was sentient and wanted to hire a lawyer for it. So we're going to get to see a version of Lambda with Apprentice Bard. Now, here's the interesting thing. Google said that this new Apprentice Bard is not going to be limited to events before 2021. So it will know current events. It's going to be up on up on everything. So when is this coming out? How is this all going to roll out? We don't know yet. But Google is holding an event on February 8th to let the world know about Apprentice Bard. And, I'm going to assume they're going to give us a timeline, because I know that they're getting ready to have at least a pilot out there and have certain people out have a certain amount of the public testing it. Or maybe they're going to do a straight rollout and let everybody pilot it. I honestly don't know at this point. But by next weekend, when we have this, I'll have watched that February 8th event, and I'll be able to give you guys a heads up. So that's Wednesday. We find out about Apprentice Bard and exactly how it's going to perhaps kick ChatGPT in the butt. We don't know. So, and you guys will have to, let me know. What do you guys think about this? Is this the first time you've even heard of Apprentice Bard? Because, I think I was one of the first people talking about ChatGPT back on the Danter Banter over on the Tim and Nancy Danter channel back in the day. And then, a couple weeks later, everybody in the world seemed to know about ChatGPT. So now it might be Apprentice Bard. Maybe a couple weeks from now, everybody will know about Apprentice Bard. Nobody will be talking about ChatGPT anymore. Well, we'll have to see. If Apprentice Bard comes out and it's not limited to, till 2021 and beyond and below, and you don't have that issue of it being unavailable, maybe it will absolutely make people forget completely about ChatGPT. So we'll have to see how that works. That's going to be really, really, really interesting. All right. Now we got Jordan, who says, so there's a good one I found out this week. I filled a tank of propane for my glass this past week. A tank has gone from 75 cents to $1 per pound. 19 pounds in the tank, $19 debited. Well, there we go. Inflation is hitting propane of all things. But a lot of people do use propane. People still have propane stoves and other reasons for using propane. So it's not surprising that everything has gone up a certain amount. But as Jordan said, that's a 33% gain. So that's pretty steep. Trevor's in the house. Trevor says, hi, folks. And then Jill, back to ChatGPT, saying the main concern for the education thing is how many of them are going to be false positives. That is true. That is true. If perhaps you happen to be just very robotic in speech, maybe you could come off as a false positive. I don't know. I would have to see some data to see whether or not a person could write something originally to basically have a false positive come up. So that's a good question. Ford Tough says, hey, everyone. Jill, I watched your second video yesterday. Great job. Scott says, you'll be able to do a battle video between both. Yes, ChatGPT versus Apprentice Bard. This will be kind of cool. And look at this. I'm in here and I'm talking about Tim and Nancy Danter, and look at that. They pop up. Holy banana bread. That's kind of funny. How you there, Tim and Nancy Danter? And hey, Jordan. All right, that's Tim and Nancy Danter. As I said as well, I do the Wednesday chats over on the Tim and Nancy Danter channel. So if you guys have not checked those out yet, head over to Tim and Nancy Danter and just give them a sub and check it out on Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern, when we talk about this, that, and everything. We're sort of like I guess we're like a version of Seinfeld. Half the time we're talking about things that are just absolutely nothing, and other times we're talking about absolutely fascinating things. So check it out. All right. Our next big topic is that jobs report. So in the U.S., they had the January jobs report drop, and it freaked a lot of people out. The S&P did a big drop because of it, but I don't think it's as much to worry about as it seems. So basically, what happened was non-farm payrolls, they increased by 517,000. Now, they were only estimated to increase by 187,000. In addition to that, unemployment in the U.S. fell to 3.4%. And they had estimated that it was going to fall to 3.6%. But 3.4% is the lowest unemployment they've had since May 1969. I'm willing to wager that a lot of you guys in the audience weren't even alive when unemployment was as low as it is now in the U.S. Now, why is this not a big deal? Part of it has to do with Jay Powell's speech after the rate hike on last Wednesday, and we're going to talk about that here in a moment. But one of the things he did say is that we're not seeing any evidence of a wage price spiral. And even though jobs are really, really good, they're still getting that drop in unemployment, that drop in inflation. So inflation's coming down despite the fact that jobs are really good. That does hold a promise that Jay Powell is not going to be super worried, because this type of thing, if Jay Powell was still worried about jobs, and if this was affecting inflation, the way that, especially with like a wage price spiral, then things could look really bad when it came to the next rate hikes in the US. But Jay Powell has indicated that he's not as concerned about jobs because he's not seeing that wage price spiral, and inflation is coming down, which is good. So to me, that's a really good thing. We don't have to worry too much about it. It'll be interesting to see what our next jobs report in Canada is going to look like. So we'll definitely cover that on this channel when we get it, because that would be kind of cool. Oh, thanks. My watch loves to talk, but no, don't talk. I don't want to talk to you, watch. My watch loves to talk, and sometimes I never know why, or I don't know what triggers her off. Like if you say her name, that's supposed to get her attention. But I think what it is if I move my hand the wrong way, my hand might come up and actually hit the button, And I think that also kind of signals her. I've been sort of trying to figure this out, why she talks to me randomly. And that seems to be it. In tomorrow's video, she talks to me randomly at one point, and I keep it in. I kept a little bit of her talking to me randomly because it kind of was funny. So you'll have to look for that in tomorrow's video. All right. Now, before we jump to our next story, we got more people popping off in the chat. So Tim and Nancy are just saying, hey to Jordan. We have a great I imagine that means conversations. And that would be cool. Chat versus Bard. Yeah. Of course, here's the thing. Google they've got the money behind it. So there could be some really interesting things. Now, thinking about tech, we had a lot of tech earnings in the States come in this week. Most of them were not very good. We'll start with the good one. So Meta actually came in, and they had estimated their earnings to be $31.53 billion. They came in at $32.17 billion. In addition to that, they also basically announced that they were going to be looking at some big cost-cutting measures that they can take within the company. That was enough to actually drive the price of Meta up by 30% over the week. So, that's fantastic for any of you who are holding Meta. It's been a while since they have seen a pump like that. Now, Apple earnings came in low. They also had a year-over-year decline, which is kind of unusual for them. Most of their products came in low, other than iPads. iPads are the only one that really had any kind of promise in their earnings. Amazon, amazingly enough, Amazon did beat expectations. They came in at $149.2 billion when they were expected at $145.42 billion, but they still had another issue. Their online sales fell by 2%. So, things are not looking good for a lot of different companies. Alphabet. So Google's ad revenue dropped for the second straight quarter. They were anticipated to get $8.25 billion. They only got $7.96 billion. So tech is still struggling a little bit in the US. But here's the thing. When you look at the fact that tech has been doing a little bit better before all these earnings reports come out, these earnings reports, a lot of them are for Q4. Well, they are for Q4, so they're from last year. So they're not reflecting any positive stuff going on right now. However, a lot of companies, for example, Apple, they've already said that they're, things like the chip shortages, some of the issues they've had with some of their factories in China, they know that there's going to be some issues. The other problem with tech too is a lot of companies, like when Intel actually, I think it was the week before last, they said that they're not anticipating a lot of sales on, for a little while, only for the simple reason that a lot of people during the pandemic, they all went out, bought their computers, got everything all set up. So there's not as big of a demand for personal computers and things like that now. So that's going to be interesting. Well, you also think about it, people who all of a sudden had to work at home because of the pandemic, they're buying all their laptops then. Their businesses, if their businesses needed laptops, they were buying laptops or desktops for people to take home. So, it's kind of interesting that way. All right. Now, should we talk a tiny bit about food? So one of the interesting things, we all know grocery bills are expected to rise. All of the no-name stuff, like at Loblaws, for example, is no longer price protected. Now, in all fairness, they do this every year. They protect it through the holidays. It's like a price freeze. It's annual. Doesn't matter that that we're in a situation here with inflation. They still do it every year. Although they did play up that they're doing it this year to make it seem like they were doing something nice, when the fact is they do it every single year. So that's something we need to keep in mind. But with grocery bills continuing to go up, and we got, apparently, according to Loblaws, a lot of suppliers are asking them to raise prices on a lot of different things. So we'll have to see how that turns out. Obviously, the prices are going to go up. But apparently, 15.5% of Canadians have now begun growing their own food at home. So here's my question to you guys. Are you guys doing the same thing? Are you growing food at home right now? Are any of you growing food at home? So let me know in the chat if you are. Now, here's that really interesting thing. All of the big rage about eggs, right? Eggs being so expensive. Well, Urban Hens TO, that's their actual name. You can't make that up. So Urban Hens TO, they're based in Toronto. They're actually looking to extend a pilot for urban chicken keeping. So I guess it's a thing where you can actually have chickens in the city. So you can actually then have your own eggs. I don't know how that would work. I mean, obviously, if you're living in a condo, you probably can't have chickens. But I imagine if you have a house, though, on the outskirts of the city, you could probably have chickens. Now, Winnipeg as well. Last year, they actually approved the same thing. They improved a chicken keeping within city limits. They had opened up a 2-year pilot on this. So it looks like some cities are starting to loosen up a bit and say you can have chickens. Now, when I was a kid at my grandparents' and we were within the city limits of Halifax, our neighbors used to have chickens. Every morning, I pretty much woke up with the sound of the rooster crowing because, it was their chicken coop was quite literally, maybe 200 yards from our house. But the nice thing is the neighbors used to always give us fresh eggs, and that was always kind of nice. So it's very, very interesting to see. Now, Scott says he's going to start a garden this year. That's pretty awesome. Now, where Scott lives on the West Coast, he does get better weather, so he might be able to get a longer growing season. So, that's kind of a cool thing. I did, of course, that's all I have really on food. I did mention that Fed rate hike. One of the other interesting things with that is, so for those of you who missed that the Fed down in the US raised the points, they went with 25 basis points. They also said that there's probably going to be another. So most people think that they're going to do one more 25 and then look at a pause. So one of the interesting things, though, is that the entire speech that was given, as well as the actual document, it was much less hawkish, while not trying to be dovish. And hawkish just basically means like, we're going to keep on doing this. Dovish is like, yeah, it's all working. Now, Jay Powell did say a few things in his speech, and through some of the questionings afterwards, when the press was questioning him, that he's very happy that he's seen a significant drop in inflation. So I think he's definitely leaning in the right direction. Now, before they have the next Fed meeting, of course, they got 2 CPIs coming out. The first one will be on February 14th. So we'll have to see how that all works out. So it's going to be interesting. Now, there are still layoffs happening in the U.S. Like, I think FedEx this week, they laid off about 10% of their officers and directors. So that's going to be very interesting to see how much. I haven't heard a lot of layoffs in Canada, at least this week. None that came to my attention. But anyway, that's kind of anything. Now, I did mention earlier that I was going to talk a tiny bit about crypto. So JP Morgan this week had a survey that came out, and they were looking at institutional traders in regards to trading crypto. In the survey, 72% of institutional traders, they said they're not going to be trading crypto this year. And the two most popular reasons were volatility and a lack of real world applications. Now, 8% did come out and said that they are actively trading crypto. So that's interesting because that adds up to 80%. I have no clue what the other 20% are doing. So that's kind of interesting, unless they were just 20% said we don't really know what we're doing. But that's really interesting. Now, Bitcoin, as I mentioned earlier, it has risen to 23K US. So we do have some momentum in Bitcoin. And really interesting, there are a few analysts out there that actually believe Bitcoin can rise all the way up to 45K by the end of the year. That would be a nice rise, that's for sure. That's like, well, that's pretty much 100x almost 100x from where we're at right now. That would be pretty interesting to watch. I'm a little more bearish than I think, than those analysts. I could certainly see it getting up to maybe 30,000 or maybe even 35,000, but I don't know about 45. I think that's a little bit of a stretch because that's a lot of money that has to get pumped into that market. So I think that would be definitely interesting. And of course, Scott says that would be nice. Now, Scott has a good chunk of BTCY, so I know why he wants to see Bitcoin go up, because that would certainly knock that up for him. Wow. All right. Yeah, we're just chugging along with the news here, folks. As well, while we're doing this, because I only have so many news articles, you guys drop some questions of whatever into the chat, and that way there I can address some of that as well as we're going. While I'm waiting for some questions, let me talk a tiny bit about housing prices. So the housing prices in Ontario, average sales prices have actually dropped about 30% from the 2022 peaks. That's pretty big. Now, why that's kind of important is right now in Canada, where we have paused rate hikes, you have to realize that housing actually makes up about 30% of our CPI. So when the rates are hiking, of course, that's increasing mortgages because, interest rates, it goes up, people pay more mortgages. And that has contributed to inflation because that data, as I said, 30% of the CPI. So when mortgages increase, that goes in as, an increase in that part of the CPI, which, does calculate inflation. So what's going to be interesting is that this pause, it's going to, once we've had a chance for all of these rate hikes to cycle through, this is going to help lower that part of the CPI data because once the rates of mortgages stop going up and once they level out, then it's not going to be contributing to inflation anymore. So that will help knock CPI down a little bit. So I thought that was kind of really interesting to think of it this way, but it's going to be really, really, really interesting. One more story. Actually, I've only got one more story left, guys, and then we'll have to just talk about whatever. The Ontario Power Generation folks, they have agreed to build something called small modular nuclear reactors. So SMRs, that's what they call them. So a small modular nuclear reactor is an SMR. So they're going to be building one of these at the Darlington New Nuclear Project site. So what's interesting is that these mini nuclear reactors, once they're operational, they can provide power to roughly 240,000 homes. Now, this one here, once they build it, it's going to be the first in North America. In fact, the only other SMRs currently in use are in Russia and China. So that's kind of interesting. Now, they do still need the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission to sign off on these as well. Here's an interesting thing. They don't even know how long it's going to take them to build them. And it's hard for them to get data because China and Russia is not very forthcoming to say, oh, here, let us give you all of our information on how long it will take to build this. Now, I think Aon is going to be one of the Canadian companies involved in building these. But these could be very interesting. I mean, it's nice, clean energy. And it would be a good way to move us a little bit more off of coal and gas and oil. So that'll be very, very, very interesting. Now, one other little thing, since we mentioned oil, I mean, the price of oil this week absolutely tanked. So oil has been tanking in 2023, and which is really interesting because a lot of people were expecting it to go up. But we've got a lot of factors that are going on here. One of the big factors, obviously, is that Europe has had almost a no-show for winter. So because winter has been much milder than expected, they're not using the fuel that they thought they would need. And that is really, really an interesting situation. In addition to that, one of the things, China has been buying a lot of cheap oil from Russia, and they have been stockpiling it. So now they're in a situation where the demand, even as China's opening up, the demand that we thought we were going to get from China, we're not getting it because they have been stockpiling on that cheap Russian oil. So that is kind of an interesting thing about oil and what's going on. Now we got AC Dats is in the house. Ontario doesn't burn coal anymore. Yeah, that's kind of a good thing. And yeah, I wasn't really sort of insinuating that Ontario burns coal, but I was just thinking, I was kind of thinking big picture. I think a lot of places don't really burn coal anymore. It's all, it's all oil or natural gas for the most part. And of course, we've got a large amount of renewables, which is really, really good. But anything that is going to be clean energy, I think, is definitely a good thing. So, all right. So that's it for the news. The news is now done. So now we're going to we'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. It does not matter to me. So coming up this week, I will let you guys know what's going on the channel. Tomorrow, I said I would do a REIT video, so we're doing that REIT video. So that's coming out. Thursday, I'm going to do another deep dive before I get into a battle. So this is going to be just a regular deep dive. We're going to look at Canadian Tire. So I think the Danters brought that up and said they really wanted to see Canadian Tire, and I was like, yeah, that's a good one. So we're going to do a deep dive on Canadian Tire. Now this Saturday we will have the OA, the old age security. That is coming, and that's going to be really, really, really awesome. And what is this here? Fred Zorro asks, is a pause a certainty? Once the Fed continues to raise rates, the Canadian dollar will depreciate, putting upward pressure on prices due to higher import prices, forcing the BOC to follow the Fed. Well, in a sense, is the pause a certainty? No, it's not 100%. The Bank of Canada left it open to say that, we're looking to pause, but if situations change, and that makes sense. If the data doesn't support a pause, then they could certainly come back and say, look, we thought about pausing, but, maybe let's say that if they were seeing a wage price spiral, then they could cancel the pause. And I think here's the big thing is I think the Fed in the US is only looking to do one more anyway. So that wouldn't really affect the Canadian pause. I think we'll get our pause. The US will do their final one and then say, yeah, we're looking to pause on our next one. So we'll have to see how that all works out. But that seems to be what most analysts are thinking. And economists are thinking that we're going to see the pause in Canada, one more in the US, and then a pause in the US. But we'll have to see. There's a lot of data that can still come out. And I do like the fact that the Bank of Canada sort of left it in the air to say that, hey, if things don't work out the way that we're anticipating, we want to be able to take that off the table. So that could happen. So we're going to have to see what happens. Oh, I missed this comment. Perlovia oil may be at its low level as we speak. Yeah, it is definitely low. I mean, I was watching oil on Friday, and I believe it was roughly $3 a barrel it lost in price just on Friday alone. So we're getting down there. I don't foresee it going below $70 a barrel, but right now it's really interesting. I didn't really think it would get as low as it is right now. I thought we were, when we were hanging up in the high 70s, like 79 to 80, I thought that was a good level for oil to be at. Mr. Red Taco comes into the house and says, afternoon, everyone. Hello, Mr. Red Taco. It is great to see you here. Okay, I mentioned, so we got the REITs tomorrow, Canadian Tire on Thursday, and then we're going to do that old age on Saturday. I was going to do that for this Saturday, but Jill's video was coming in, and I was just like, well, I do need to get her video squeezed in, because if I had dropped that video on Saturday, I would have had to have pushed her to some time in the week. So I wanted to get her in. And so we'll get that video out this Saturday. Then the following week is our channel member video. So I put up a message on the channel board. And so for channel members who are in here, be sure to check that out. Let me know what you want for that video, because all the ideas I get, we're going to do a poll on that. I'll drop that poll probably about midweek. So far, I've had somebody ask for a live stream for channel members, and somebody asked for a tool video. So just let me know and we'll get a vote going on whatever it is you want. And for those of you who are not channel members, if you want to catch that fun, just jump down below. It's a great way to support the channel. And you get some exclusive content. And plus, you also get to see every single friggin' move I make in my TFSA and my RRSP. I will also point out as well for everybody, I do a quarterly look into my portfolio. So I think I've got it on the schedule over on the Facebook page. I believe it's towards the end of February that we've got the next one dropping. So you guys can take a look and see what's going on in there and get all caught up while channel members get to see it happening on the fly. So that's always cool to see what changes have happened in there. And I've done a few little rebalances. So there's a few companies, like I'll give you an example, Power Corporation of Canada. So POW, I actually moved out of them. But a lot of the reason was I wanted to re-diversify into Tourmaline because they've got big special dividends happening through the rest of this year. So I was like, well, you know what? I do love POW, but I love special dividends even more. So that's one of the reasons I sort of moved. Now, once things calm down and we no longer have special dividends, I may diversify back. I don't know. I mean, Tourmaline, I've always liked them. So we'll have to sort of see how that unfolds. Let's see here. Off the topic, have you noticed how Well has woken up? I noticed a few people looking at wellness. I think we're starting to see a little bit more interest in that direction. Now, here's the funny thing. With the issues that we do have in Canada, especially with doctor shortages and things like that, I'm really expecting that companies like Well and CloudMD will start to do a little bit better, because it seems to me that needs to be what we need to embrace. I know in the pandemic, we had embraced it a little bit in some provinces. Some provinces were like, okay, yeah, you can use you can use those because you can't get to a doctor. But here's the thing, where 1 in 5 Canadians don't have a doctor. Well, let's open up things like this. Let's do a lot more virtual. Have some virtual doctors for those Canadians who don't have, because you can get through a lot more patients really fast by doing virtual. So that's just one of those things I was thinking. Why did HYLD tank when the US markets was doing okay? 2 reasons. So the first big tank that HYLD did, it had to do with the fact that it happened on its ex-dividend day. HYLD with a 14%, a $14, whatever that works out to percent wise, that 14 cent, not dollar, that dividend, as soon as you hit ex-dividend day, it gets subtracted out of the market cap. So that really helped it drop. And at the same time, we also had the whole Jay Powell thing happening. So it did tank a little bit, and it has not recovered yet. It has, towards the end of Friday, it did start moving up, which is great. I'm hoping to see it spend most of this week ticking back up, because it went down quite a bit. And it is normal anytime somebody pays out their dividend, even though the payment date is down the road, it's on ex-dividend day that when basically it gets removed from the market cap. So here's a little piece of advice. If you ever want to buy in to a big dividend stock, sometimes if you just wait till ex-dividend day, you're not going to get that dividend, but you might be able to get in at a much cheaper price to get your stock set up for the future. So just one of those thoughts. Now, keep in mind, too, that if you look at the price before the ex-dividend day, and you look at that dividend, it might still be feasible to jump in then just to get that dividend, depending on what you think. Because normally it'll normally fairly work out, because you're technically losing the same amount as the dividend. But it does take sometimes, and some companies take longer to recover. If it's a quarterly dividend, it can sometimes take a lot longer to recover. So that's one of those things when I was mentioning about Oh, Trevor, I can't believe you asked that. I'll get to you in a second there, Trevor. Um, all right. Sometimes when you're looking at doing a dividend capture strategy, you want to sort of look at that company in the past. You want to go back and look at their last 5x dividend days and see how fast have they been recovering. And also at the same time, keep in mind what's happening in the market too, because that can also affect it. But yeah, I think a big part of the HYLD this week has been because of their ex-dividend day. It just sort of happened to fall in there, and I think that's why we're looking at it. So I'm looking to see them come up this week. And let's see, Vic made it in. So, hey, Vic, good to see you. Have you heard of Blossom? Yes, I have heard of Blossom. It's actually interesting. I was having a small conversation earlier with a Canadian in a T-shirt about Blossom. So, and I said I'm surprised that I haven't heard anybody ask me about it in my community yet. So, well, here we go. Trevor has begun. So yes, I've heard of Blossom, and I kind of like the general idea of it. So I'm going to look a little bit more into it because I think that's kind of cool. Now with Blossom, you can't see, like you won't see the detail in Blossom that you'll see when I do my quarterly updates, because my quarterly updates, it'll tell you how many shares I have and how much money the whole portfolio is worth and all of that, where Blossom just gives you percentages. But Blossom is nice because it does let you see the moves that I make, which means I might have to give a little bit more to the channel members to make up for that if they were to lose that. So that's going to be kind of interesting. Now, Vic says, do YTSL, Y Google, and other yield shares behave the same way? Yes, they normally do. Now, YTSL, their ex-dividend day happened to fall the morning after the big announcements with Tesla's earnings. And the price of Tesla went through the roof overnight. So you didn't actually see that drop, but it was there. It was hidden. It was just that there was so much upward pressure that price flew up. So that's one of them rare situations. So when we get to the ex-dividend day for the YTSL, next time around, you're probably going to see a drop. Unless Tesla is still in the process of flying, and as Scott shows, with a rocket ship. So we have to sort of look at that. But here's the other thing too: in a bull market, in a bear market, it's much more prominent. You can see these drops a lot better. As we move into a bull market, these drops, they still happen, but the recovery is faster. And that's always fantastic. Like dividend capture strategy works so much better in a bull market than in a bear market because you have a lot less downtime when you're waiting for that recovery. So that's one of those things I like to think about. And if I'm right and we do get that bull market happening in the fall, then I'm ready for it. I'm really, really ready because here's some of the beautiful things. Channel wise, that's going to be a fantastic thing for this channel because we're going to have so many brand new people coming in who are new to investing, who are looking for help, and that'll be great for Jill's FIQ. And I always make some of my tutorial videos are FIQ for sure. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of new blood in, and sure, I'll have some of those basic questions coming at me again because you guys have been here so long that you guys ask harder questions. So all of a sudden, I'm going to have some of the easy questions start coming in. And you guys will notice, you'll start to see a little bit more new blood in the chats and, in the live stream. And that's going to be fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to that bull market. And I'm slowly gearing the channel up to go in that direction. Now, here's the other beautiful thing is that in the bull market, channels can totally explode. Now, I'll give you guys some data here just to give you a general idea.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Sorry, Siri. Siri is once again wanting more information. All right, give me a second. I'm just pulling up some data here. So when we're in a bull market or a bear market, so if you have a financial channel on YouTube, you don't actually grow as much. Now I've already started to, I've been looking and tracking my growth. So like in January, and this is kind of that positive momentum seeing with the market. January, I picked up 148 new subs. In February, we're a few days in, and I'm already up 22 subs. So I'm seeing that positive already sentiment starting to happen around subs and around people coming into YouTube. And now that is, to me, that is a bigger indication of where the whole market and the whole psychology of the market. And I think people are starting to there's starting to be a bit more positivity, and I'm starting to see new people. I'm starting to see people who are asking me questions that are, that are pretty basic. And I don't mind. Like if you're brand new and you're like, oh my God, everybody is so advanced, but I just want to know something simple. Well, don't be afraid to ask it. Don't be afraid to reach out. I will do whatever I can. I mean, even this morning, I had somebody reach out to me on, I've never heard of the person before. They reached out to me on Twitter and asked me some financial questions. And I was just like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Let's give you some answers. Because that's kind of the way it is. Like most of the people I see in here, I see you guys all the time. Like you guys are the regulars and you guys are awesome, which is fantastic. But and here's that other thing too, like especially one of the things I want to really kind of start doing is the more people we can get over on that Facebook group. And maybe Facebook group is not the best place. Maybe we need a Discord. I don't know. We'll have to look at it. Maybe if that's what you guys want, I'll do a poll.
I'm not sure I understand.
All right, I'm taking the watch off because she keeps asking stuff. We can do like a poll and see where you guys want to have for a place for interaction. Now, I started it with a Facebook group just because everybody seemed to be doing that back then. But a lot of people like, all right, Jordan's on Discord. So we know that Discord will get at least one vote. Discord is nice too, because then you can actually do, you guys can have the ability to just create your own little chat room and talk to each other and things like that. I believe you can do that on Discord. So if Discord is where you guys want to be, that's where we'll go. But I'll do a poll. So we'll do a poll on the community tab and we'll ask you guys what you want to see. And then we'll do that as a way, because one of the things is that when we start getting that bull market happening, we start getting a lot of new people in, those of you who've been around for a long time, if somebody comes in and asks a simple question and you know the answer, jump in. Feel free, just jump in, let them know. Because that's kind of the whole idea of the whole community mindset. And, all of our, our 1,000 brains are better than just one, which to me is fantastic. And let's see here. And Vic wants meetups. Let's have a meetup. Scott in the West, Candace in the East. We'll have to have a double meetup. Or we can just drag everybody from the country and we'll all go to Winnipeg or something. Or we'll just meet there. I don't know why I was thinking Winnipeg, but... oh, and your cat Buster approves. I guess your cat has a Discord then. And potluck barbecue. I'll bring the banana bread. Oh, there we go. See, Vic, you're trying to tempt me with banana bread. Holy banana! That almost sounded weird saying holy banana bread when talking about banana bread. So, too many bananas. That's all I'm saying. Interesting thing. When I was a kid in Nova Scotia, they had a banana war. Now, what is a banana war, you might ask? For some reason, one grocery store decided we're just going to sell all of our bananas for a penny a pound. And the other stores all started doing that too. And it was so bad. There were so many bananas. Quite literally, my mom was buying bananas left, right, and center. Every time I went to school, I'd open up my lunch bag and there'd be like 2 bananas in there. There'd be banana bread all over the place. Anything with banana in it, that was happening during the Great Banana War. So I've never seen anything like that again, but I'd be okay with a banana war right now or something like that. Much better than any other type of war. And let's see. Well, AI meet in Winnipeg, -60 wind chill. Oh dear. Not as bad as Mount Washington down in the eastern part of the States. They had a wind chill in this recent little batch. It was like a -105 Fahrenheit. So that's still pretty darn cold in Celsius too. And that to me, that's just craziness. I wouldn't go out in a negative 105. No way. Let's see. We had a peach fight in our backyard as kids. The bees were happy, but the mess was nasty. I can imagine. I'll tell you a funny little story. Nova Scotia, there's a park at one end. It's called Point Pleasant Park. I went there one day, I was just having a walk, and I brought a lunch with me, and I sat down to have my lunch, and I had a peach. I took a bite out of the peach, and I just laid it on a rock, and then I was eating my other stuff, and I turned to go grab my peach, and it was gone. So I'm like, what the heck? So I'm looking around, and there's a squirrel. This squirrel is like slowly just moving my peach, and he's got it in his mouth, and he's lifting it and moving. And I'm just like, I didn't go after the squirrel. I'm like, buddy, if you can sneak up and you can carry that peach, which is almost bigger than you deserve the peach. So, the squirrel got to have a really good peach that day. I guess it was peachy for the squirrel, but Winterpeg, yeah. People who are from Winnipeg hate it when you say Winterpeg. I've learned this completely. So I don't use the word Winterpeg, but I'm just quoting Trevor right now. So it's not me saying Winterpeg, it's Trevor. So throw all your hate at Trevor. Well, don't throw any hate at Trevor. Trevor's awesome. Anyway, life's a peach. And we got the friggin' Oracle in the house. Oh, wow. Look at this. Oh, we got Jay Borg. It's like, what is this? It's like I need to have a 1-hour warm-up show before the real show starts, because that's when everyone shows up is when we get later in the show. Mr. Red Taco says life is peachy. Yeah. I mean, life is a lot of fun. Any of you in the East right now have experienced some insane cold. At least in Ontario, it is breaking. So it is actually getting a little bit warmer, which is good. I'm actually hoping that is the coldest of the winter because, February 3rd was the official middle of winter, according to Farmer's Almanac. So apparently we're on our way out of winter now. It's still a long trek, but we're definitely moving in that direction. See, when market greenifies peachy. And I was watching Uncharted. And Mr. Red Taco says, everyone take a break. Have a peach before the actual stream starts. There we go. Welcome to the warm-up stream. Yeah. It's like I'm the opening act, but for who? Who is following? I don't know. So this weekend I can go camping. Well, you can. I've actually done Arctic camping before. When you have like an Arctic, you have like a sleeping bag. It wraps up right around your head and has a hood on it and everything. You can do some pretty cool stuff. When I used to be in Sea Cadets when I was younger. We actually did one. We went to a leadership camp up in Petawawa, and when we went up to Petawawa, it was friggin' cold. Now it was March. So you think, it wouldn't be that bad, but it was cold. They gave us Arctic parkas and everything while we were up there. It was a great course. I learned a lot about leadership and, how to inspire people and how to talk and all of that fun stuff. So, that was fantastic. All right. Trevor's laughing probably at the whole Winterpeg thing. Nancy Danter, great stream, Candace. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate it. And Vic says, boomers retiring, so job reports will remain high no matter what the Fed does. Absolutely. Now, I think I did a video on this too, like months and months ago. One of the things I was talking about was the fact that we have more people retiring than new people entering the workforce. So that is definitely one of the things that's going on. And I don't think we can get into a situation where unemployment will get high for a while. And this is the beautiful, I don't want to call it a beautiful thing, but this is the thing, is that we kind of need to expect this to be going on. It's probably going to take about 10 years to get out of the system completely before things get back to, at that point, all of the baby boomers are done. And now it'll be the Gen X's, but there's more baby boomers than Gen X's. So we will keep that going. Okay, and let's see here. Yes, downfilled camping gear. I went camping over Christmas one year. Nice. And Nancy says, so true, Vic. This is what This is why this should be a milder recession, if we have it at all. That's the whole thing, right? So we'll have to be, I still think we're going to have it, but I'm willing to acknowledge that there's a chance we won't. So I've come a long way because I thought it was going to be a much worse recession probably 6 months ago. Let's see, the Fed should not focus too much on jobs reports. They'll have to completely kill the economy to raise unemployment rate. Yeah, absolutely. Jobs is not what to focus on. Now, with the jobs report in the US as well, the actual wage increases were well in line with estimates and where they should have been. So there was nothing there to indicate any kind of a wage price spiral. So that's awesome. Let's see, heard an interesting comment this week from an analyst reminding investors to be cautious when reading charting regarding the big upswing after the COVID area. That does make sense. I can understand that. I mean, honestly, you should be careful at any time. But if the bottom is still not in yet, and I kind of thought the bottom would be in probably the spring, but you look right now, anybody who's getting really, really going all in right now and thinking, oh, it's over, it's not. I think you're still going to see another big drop before we move into a bull market. And here's the thing that worries me. People coming in right now who are buying in this green, and in January, February, or maybe this will even push on into March, who knows? But if you're buying on the way up right now and all of a sudden we do move towards that bottom, don't panic. That's the big thing. Don't panic and start selling things going, oh my God, I got to take this loss because we're just going down. Yeah, we're going to go down. We're going to then come back up later in the year, more than likely. So hold out, hold on. Because keep in mind, the way to make money on the market is to, buy low, sell high. So if you're buying when it's kind of high-ish compared to then, you don't want to be then selling when you get down to the bottom because you're doing the exact opposite. Now, the highs that we're seeing now are going to be, they'll be lower than what we're going to see once we move into the bear market, or into the bull market. Oh, it's so hard to say bull market. I'm so used to saying bear market now. But yeah, when you're charting, it's one of these things where if we have a tendency to move down, then, things may break downside. But a lot of times if you're charting and you're seeing all this green, you're almost always thinking, yeah, this pattern's going to break to the upside. It may not. It really may not. So be a little cautious right now. Big thing is don't give in to fear when we move into that final bottom, if that's what's going to happen, because you don't want to be losing money. You want to be making money. So hold on, and right now, I look at it this way. You shouldn't really be investing what you can't afford to lose anyway. So just hold on to those investments, ride out the next little drop. And then, if you really want to sell in the fall when we're moving back up, sell at a profit. Don't sell at a loss unless you have absolutely no choice. So that's just my little 2 pieces of advice when it comes to the way the market behaves. Vic says, anyone worrying about having too high on an RRSP? Not there yet, but after 1 million big tax hit with RRIF. Well, that's the thing. Your RRSP is really a strategic account. So, you want to be using it to lower income in the high years. Now, if you're in that situation where, let me just say this. If you're in a situation where you don't have high years, then you should only really be investing in your TFSA until that's full, only because if you're not making a lot of money, you don't really need the tax benefits to lower it down. And once you do retire, if you've got a nice stacked TFSA, that's all tax-free, and you don't have to pull it out you can keep it in there as long as you want. It can keep growing it. Whereas once you do hit 71, you're forced to take that income out of your RRSP. So if for whatever reason you still have a good amount of income when you are 71, and you're all of a sudden now having to take that extra income, that could have some tax ramifications in some situations. But if you're making a lot of money now, and you're probably going to be making quite a bit less in retirement, then it makes sense to start using that strategically to lower you down, to lower your taxes a little bit. But it's just one of those things, strategic. And then the other thing too, I really like is if you do want to invest in, let's say, for example, you want to invest in US dividend stocks, that's a great place for those because it's the only account that the US sees through our tax treaty as being registered. It doesn't recognize the TFSA. So if you put a US dividend stock in a TFSA, they're going to hold back 15% withholding tax on that dividend. And there's nothing you can do in a TFSA. You don't have any recourse. It's just gone. Whereas if you had a US dividend stock in just a regular account, so your personal account, they still take that 15%. But you can then get a tax credit for it when tax time comes around, so you don't lose it per se. So just one of those things to keep in mind when dealing with RRSPs. And and Vic's mentioning how RRIF, that's when you basically are forced to start using it. So keep in mind there can be tax ramifications if you have a completely flushed out RRSP. But that's sort of the here and now because let's see here. Let's go here. The friggin' Oracle says no big bags, just DCA. Yeah, dollar cost averaging is always the best way to invest because you're going to hit the fair market value of an asset when you dollar cost average over time. Whereas when you're trying to time the market, you're going to miss things. Even if you're trying to buy low, some people it may work. If you just happen to get really lucky and you're always buying low, well, you might. But then the problem is that price is going to go up and you're going to end up buying high. And the person who dollar cost average ends up just coming right through the middle. So that is not a bad thing. Wish they'd increase the room. 10K is good. So I think you're talking about your TFSA, or maybe you're still talking about the RRSP. But yeah, I'd love to see a year where they add 10K to the TFSA. But I don't think we're going to see that. I think what you might see is eventually get up to 7,000. And let's see here. I get the same dividend benefits with Lira account as US treats the same as RRSP. Yeah, there we go. So, and that's kind of good. I think they should. I think the US should recognize the TFSA. But it would basically take renegotiation of that tax treaty to get that done. So I don't foresee that happening. Oh dear. All right. This has been a great show. I mean, you guys had some great questions and it's always fantastic to spend time with you every afternoon. So as we're winding out here, if anybody has any super positive things just to say to the whole chat for the week, because I always like to end it on something like that when I have that opportunity, drop that in and we'll get that up. So this week, there's not a lot happening actually this week. We do have some earnings reports coming out. We've got Enbridge, TELUS, Sun Life, and Fortis. Those are all of the big Canadian stocks. Down in the US, we have Disney. I think that's the big one. I think also PayPal is coming out with earnings in the US as well. So that's what's going on next week. So may not be a big news week. So hopefully it means that we can have a nice green market and stick with those Canadian stocks and less surprises. Yeah, sometimes there can be a lot less surprises for sure with the Canadian side of the market. So I always like to stick with those, although I do like my American stocks too. But the American stocks I pick are mostly long term because I don't want to have to worry about surprises. And let's see, Perlova, 2023 is positive and it's only February. That's right. I think overall, Disney. You like Disney, do you, Vic? I think overall, 2023 will probably end in the green. But if we hit that bottom, which I'm thinking of in the late spring, it might feel like it's going to be a bad year before things turn around. And you know what? Here's that thing. Even though I think we're going to still have a bottom, I could be totally wrong, and I kind of hope I'm wrong. But at the same time, if I'm right, then that's a good buying opportunity, right? But it's going to do what it is going to do. All right, guys. You guys didn't give me a positive thing to end on. Wow. But, we still have to end because I have more editing to do for tomorrow's video. Anyway, just want to thank you guys for all being here. I want to thank all you guys on the replay who are watching. Before you go, make sure to hit that like button on your way out. And those of you who are channel members, remember, let me know what it is you want to see for that channel membership video that's coming out a week from this next Saturday. And we'll get that all going. So here we go. Here's our positive little note from Jordan. Have a great evening, everyone. It's been a great show, and we will see you guys all again here next week. All right. Take care, everybody.